Thanks for joining me on this special edition of the Talk Nation. All across America, there are hundreds of thousands of people who are on the streets. Many of them are children. They have no place to go, and many of them feel their prospects are hopeless. There are many people who are out there to help them. But there are heroes and villains in this fight against homelessness. It is one of the great tragedies in our American story. And I'll present a possible alternative with resources we already have. Award-winning clinical psychologist Therese Rando said that there are three main stages of grief. There's avoidance, there's confrontation, and then there's accommodation. And I think there's a parallel between that and what's going on in homelessness. This presentation is not about criticizing people, although there is a bit of that.
Complete lawlessness and just a breakdown of civilization. There are people who are living in tents, RVs. They are surrounded in their filth. There's feces. There's needles on the floor. They're living in squalor.
But there are many organizations out there doing really hard work trying to end homelessness. If there's any criticism I could have for that, it's that there are so many different people, and sometimes you would think that maybe combining their efforts would be a better plan. And that's part of what I'm going to talk about. As you can see from this map, the bulk of homeless people are in California, but virtually every state has some amount of homelessness. All across America, we see people on the streets. Maybe they're drug users, perhaps they're irresponsible people who made bad decisions in their lives, but often it's something that was out of their control. Some create an unsafe environment, and quite frankly, many people are afraid of them because they can turn violent. Mental illness and drug use, which sometimes are both one and the same, are prevalent in homeless communities. Then there's the other side of that same coin, people who lost their jobs, their livelihood, in a world that priced them out of society. There are those who run out of ways to get help, and there are those who have children with them in a struggle to survive. There are reports that as many as 200,000 children will sleep on the streets tonight, while the total number is said to be over 500,000. Regardless of their situations or the reason they live in a tent under the overpass or somewhere in the corner of a park, most of us make it a priority to avoid them. We cross the street to keep from getting close to them, a parallel to the first stage, avoidance. Then comes confrontation. Some confrontations with the homeless could be considered justified when there's a violation of personal space. Now, often the police or civic authorities will arrive and kick them out of spaces where they've created tent communities. We recently saw that with the Academy Awards when the homeless were chased away. An unsympathetic public considers them a nuisance, and an assessment of actions taken shows that the problem isn't being solved. Now, there are agencies that are tasked with helping them, and some of them do a great job against enormous challenges, including funding. They offer some relocation and food services. Some of the agencies and people do have a profit motive. These situations cost money, but it should not be a means to profit from misery. There's been an accusation that some of them perpetuate it to keep the money coming in. So what do we do? The mayor of Los Angeles wants to spend $1 billion, but throwing money at it isn't going to help if we keep doing the same thing over and over again and expect a different result. We know from recent history that the problem isn't going away, and the evidence proves that the problem is getting bigger. We are shocked when we think about the 500,000 people that have allegedly died of COVID-19. And yet, every single night, there are 500,000 Americans that are on the street, facing their own kind of danger. And because of the pandemic, homelessness is getting worse. We've gone through 2 stages of homelessness, so let's get to the third, accommodation. Our republic has leadership that sometimes thinks more about putting a Band-Aid on the problem than solving it. They just delay it instead of thinking outside the box to come up with new ways to solve these problems. And I guarantee you this will get worse if we don't do something dramatic. Now more than ever, we need people who represent us to be open to solutions, not temporary fixes and leaving it to the next person, the next generation even, to solve a problem that may not even be solved then. Now, what if I told you the American people own hundreds of military bases that have been closed? There's also a lot of land with that, and they're near city centers in some places, and some places they're out in the countryside. These pieces of property we own, And in many cases, we're spending a lot of money to maintain them. Why not use them for something practical? Now think about what we could do. Many of those bases could be retrofitted to provide for hundreds of thousands of homeless people, giving them health care, mental health services, and provide able-bodied homeless with job searches as well as job training. And those starting jobs and on their way to getting their lives back together would have child care, and their older children would get schooling. Consider that we own the government, though sometimes we don't really act like it. And there's one more really important consideration. Our government, both state and national, have secret supplies of non-perishable food. The American people also have stockpiles of wheat and rice. Why not use it to help feed the homeless? But the housing of people on those repurposed bases would not be a forever home, just a place to hit the reset button for the most suffering in our society. There are many advantages that a plan like this would benefit our nation and people. Now, for one thing, it would help get people off the street and into a productive life that would give them a future. But not just for them, but for their children and future children who would face all kinds of danger on the street. We can do this. I urge you to contact your representative or other people you think can push this forward. It's the best way to employ our unused resources, and it's the morally right thing to do. Thanks for watching.